Hello and welcome to the first session on string functions. All sessions from now on until the end of this module are going to focus on functions defined in a header file, string.h. The first function memchr, and you can see from the prototype this function returns a pointer to what? We will see shortly. We have the arguments constant void star buffer, the term buffer here indicating that this function works with bytes. Integer ch, and this particular argument, although declared as integer here, is going to be converted to an unsigned character type when this function is called. Then we have size t type count, and you will recall size t is equivalent of unsigned defined in the file string.h, right? What count represents, again, we will see shortly. So this function returns a pointer to the first occurrence of the character ch in buffer in the first count characters, right? So count is going to represent the number of characters to look through searching for that character ch. Returns a null pointer if the character is not found. Now write code to search for a character in a given string and print the output accordingly. So let's now go to code blocks and we will start a new file. Hashtag include stdio.h and then hashtag include stdlib.h and then hashtag include string.h. Remember, this function is defined in the header file string.h. Int main, and we'll have const char str1, and that will be equal to, and now we'll use the function to get the return value of that function. You store it in a pointer type variable, right? So we'll declare that here, ptr equal to memchr, pass in the arguments str1 for the buffer, g for ch, that's the character to be found, and the number of bytes to look through, 40. And then just printf ptr, exit 0 to end the program. Let's run this. And you can see that this particular function has found the first occurrence of g and then returned the rest of the string, right? Starting from that point. Okay, so this is how memchr works. Moving on, strchr, you can see from the prototype, this function returns a character type pointer, right? Taking as arguments a string and an integer ch. Returns a pointer to the first occurrence of the low order byte of ch. Although ch is integer here, right, which means 4 bytes, the character would be found in that low order byte. Of course, ch would be looked for in the string pointed to by str. If it's not found, a null pointer is returned. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go back to the code we just wrote, and we're going to use strchr instead of memchr. So what you can do is just comment out this line. Let me just copy this line of code, and we can change that to strchr. So let's run this. This does not need the third argument and therefore the error. And you can see this returns the same results as memchr. What then is the difference between these two functions? So let's say we put in a null character here, right? Now let's try running this using strchr first. And you can see strchr is reading up until the null character, right? Reporting to us the first occurrence of g and the rest of the string, but only up until the null character. Let's comment this out now, and let's run memchr. And you can see again we get the same result, reading up until that null character. But what if I do something like this? Now all G's are beyond the null character, right? So let's run this first using strchr, and then we run it using memchr. And you can see that strchr returned nothing, obviously, because there's no G here up until that null character. What about memchr? I'm going to comment this out now, and we'll use memchr. And you can see that memchr is reading beyond that null character, right? So there's a difference. memchr will read beyond the null byte, looking for ch, right, represented here by G. Okay, so that's the difference between memchr and strchr. Moving on, strrchr. From the prototype, you can see this again returns a character type pointer and takes as arguments a string and the integer ch. Returns a pointer to the last occurrence of the low order byte of ch, not the first but the last. So reading backwards, if no match is found, a null pointer is returned. Given a string, write code to find the last occurrence of a given character in the string. We're going to go back to the same code and we just use strchr instead of memchr and strchr. So change this to strrchr, right? And of course, it does not need a third argument. So now we're looking for G again. Let's see what happens. And you can see that strrchr does not report beyond the null character, right? So let's do one thing now. Let's take away the null. And now let's see what strrchr reports. You can see it reports the last occurrence of G and the remainder of the string, which is just that character E. Right, so I hope that's clear as to how strrchr works. Then we have memcmp. You can see from the prototype that this function returns an integer taking as arguments constant void star buff1, constant void star buff2, and a size t type count. This function returns values that have certain meanings: less than 0 indicating that buff1 is less than buff2, 0 indicating buff1 is equal to buff2, and greater than 0 indicating buff1 is greater than buff2. And looking at these values, you may recall that strcmp returns the same values. What then is the difference between strcmp and memcmp? We will see shortly when we write some code. Coming now to strncmp. And from the prototype, you can see that this function returns an integer again, taking as arguments the constant character star str1. So this is going to work with strings, right? And constant char star str2 as well, along with size t type count. Alphabetically compares not more than count characters from the two strings, right? And then of course returns values which again have meanings. Less than 0 indicates str1 is less than str2, 0 indicating str1 is equal to str2, and greater than 0 indicating str1 is greater than str2, again the same as strcmp. So again, we need to see the differences between these three functions, right? So let's write some code. Let's go to code blocks and we start a new file. Hashtag include stdio.h and hashtag include stdlib.h and then hashtag include string.h. Int main, and here we'll have const char str1 equal to testing, and const char str2 also equal to testing. And int result, and then result equal to strncmp, and here we specify str1 representing buff1, str2, and then of course we've got to specify count. So let's say 8 characters, and then printf %d, comma, result. Exit 0 to end the program. Let's run this now. And you can see it returns a 0, indicating that both strings are equal. Right, now let's change things around a bit. So let's put in here a \0 and leave this as is. We run this now. You see it says that string 1 is less than string 2 because it's comparing that null now to the I. Right? And of course, I is greater than null. And therefore, str1 less than str2. If I, for example, put in a null here as well, and I change this to Z, what will strcmp do? You can see it returns 0, indicating that it's reading only up until the null in both strings. Right? Now, let's use strcmp. And for that, we don't need this third argument. Let's run it. And again, you can see strcmp reading up until the null. Let's remove the null here. And now let's see what happens. What strcmp returns. And again, you can see it says that str1 is less than str2. Right? So it works the same as strncmp, except that strncmp requires us to specify the number of characters to look through. Okay, what about memcmp? So let's start with just putting in null in both strings, and let's see what that returns. Okay, so we're getting this error because memcmp requires us to specify count. And you can see it says that the first string is greater than the second string, not returning equal to, right? Which means it's reading beyond the null and then encountering Z. And of course, Z is greater than I, right? So memcmp, again, like I said, working with bytes, reading beyond the null and returning the result. Okay, so that's the difference between these three functions. This ends our session for today. In the next session, we look at some more string functions. Till then, take care, stay safe, bye.